So for those who are not familiar with them, the gentleman here on your left side is Emmanuel. It's a picture drawn by a medium, obviously. And on your right side, you have also a drawing representing Chico Xavier. These two we can consider as two spirits who consolidated the Spiritist doctrine, introduced and codified or elaborated by Allan Kardec and several other spirits who came to bring us the doctrine of light that we have today, explaining again for us the gospel, reminding us about the gospel of Jesus. And they have been emissaries of Christ for centuries, and we dare to say for thousands of years. You see some of their past incarnations on the lecture of José Mussi. There are several books about them. We are not going to extensively talk about that. But they have been together, partnering together. And last year we had Geraldo Lemos Neto here. For those who were here, he put some slides. And one of the slides, he had a lot of information about Chico because he spent a great part of his life with Chico, his house. So he was part of some conversations. And one of the texts that he had was a dialogue with Chico and other folks in his house. And he was saying that he and Emmanuel have a commitment with the Spiritist doctrine for about 300 years. So interesting enough is the time where we had Allan Kardec and then Chico and now Emmanuel. We'll talk about it. So they are very committed, and we own the doctrine of the Spiritist doctrine as we know today to them as well, in addition to Allan Kardec and others. Chico was a missionary, and we know him as the greatest medium. We'll always talk about the greatest medium because of the number of books. But he was a great man. He sacrificed his life for those in need. He did so much in the silence as a humble spirit, who he is, that many people don't talk about it. But he was born in 1910, and he passed away or discarnated in 2002. And he even said before that he would discarnate in the day that the people would be happy in the country. It was the day that Brazil won the World Cup. Yeah, we did that a while ago. But that was the day, and he told that ahead of time. He didn't want people to be sad. So he passed away with 92 years old. He worked as a medium until his last days, and he carries on working, obviously. Emmanuel has been with him and partnered with him for a long time. We even see passages or messages written by Emmanuel in the Gospel according to Spiritism since the time of Allan Kardec. An easy one for simple brain people like me is 11:11. Chapter 11, item 11, he talks about selfishness. So it can't go wrong, just number one, especially for IT people that thinks binary. 1111, right? So great lesson to study about selfishness. So he has been there for a long time, but in this past incarnation he introduced himself to Chico when Chico was 17 years old. And when Chico was publishing his first book, and then Emmanuel came to Chico and said, "We have work to do, and we planned for you to psychograph, to write 30 books. Obviously, he held back the whole plan not to scare Chico Xavier, right? Chico Xavier ended up writing more than 400 books. And Geraldo Lemos Neto and others in Brazil keep finding manuscripts of Chico and publishing books after his discarnation. So he is probably reaching around 500 books already, if not more. So it's an extensive amount of work, right? So he dedicated his life to his mission. And Emmanuel we know him for one of his most defining reincarnations, which was an incarnation in Rome as a Roman senator, Publius Lentulus, which is in the book 2,000 years ago. We have it here actually, because it was a moment that he actually met Jesus, and he ignored him completely at first, but he ended up defining the direction, the route of his life on that incarnation, right? And we can see the transformation of Emmanuel. And by reading such stories, there are real life stories, it gives us strength and gives us hope that we can also turn around our own story. It's a beautiful story. 2,000 years ago is the name of the book. We have here in English, it's in Portuguese as well. That's one of the incarnations from Emmanuel. If you want to know more about the others, watch that lecture from August from José Mussi. But one of the things that Emmanuel told Chico right at the beginning, demonstrating his common sense and humbleness, right? He said, Chico, if I ever tell you anything that is not aligned with what Jesus brought to us, with Jesus' teachings, or with the teachings of Allan Kardec, abandon me, leave me, and stick with them. We should all be as humble as Emmanuel, right? If we are here in a lecture, if I say something wrong, just ignore me or point that out and stick to Allan Kardec and Chico Xavier and with the gospel of Jesus. That's the route. That's the route for us, right? From the more than 400 books that Chico Xavier wrote, Emmanuel wrote about 110. Maybe there is more that was published afterwards that we don't know, but at least until Chico passed away, it was 110. There's so much content. So much content. Has anyone here ever read a book from Emmanuel here? Raise your hands. So if you never read, we encourage you to do so. So there's one here. There's a series of 4 books. This one is The Way, the Truth, and the Life. And I saw a little Lego man over there, and I thought about Lego, right? When you build the castle, Livia and Amanda are playing with Lego now, so they're building a hotel, and you go piece brick by brick, right? And what I thought about Emmanuel and his works is that he takes the whole castle, the monument that the works of Jesus, the gospel of Jesus is, and he breaks down for us brick by brick. And help us to dissect and understand brick by brick why those bricks go into place. Or as Haroldo Dutra Dias says, the works of Jesus is like a pure collar. It's not collar, it's the right word. Necklace, thank you. It's a necklace with several pearls, and every little pearl shines and has its own value. So Emmanuel takes that necklace and looks at every single of those pearls. And actually today, that's exactly what we're going to do that. Because I am between you and your food with the lunch and learn. So I got to be careful not to extend too much. So we'll take one of those pearls only and we'll look at them. So that's what Emmanuel does. That's why it's amazing. If you never read anything from him, do it, because it's one of the most easy ways for us to start understanding about the gospel, to start making progress in our inner transformation. We will talk about more about this in a moment. So this little pearl that we are going to study together with him today is actually happened during the time of Jesus, when John the Baptist, we all know that John the Baptist was a precursor of Jesus, right? He came, he was baptizing, he was preaching the word of the Lord, but he knew that Jesus would come, right? He was a relative, he was a cousin of Jesus, their age was very close, they have very close relationship. And there were a lot of followers from John the Baptist. 2 of them were sons of Zebedee. One we know very well, John the evangelist, and the other one was his brother. In Portuguese we know as Tiago, o Maior. There's Tiago Menor, he is not here today. but in English it's called James. So the two of them were followers of John the Baptist. But John the Baptist, as Emmanuel, he was very humble to the point that one day Jesus was passing by far away, and he called the attention of his disciple and says, "That is the Lamb of God." It's an analogy with the lamb, right? With a peaceful and loving and caring animal. So he said, "That is the Lamb of God." As it's saying, follow him and leave me. That's pretty much his message. So they did, right? They left John the Baptist and they followed Jesus because they wanted to know who was that man that John the Baptist spoke so much, right? And what happened then? They followed him. And then Jesus, noticing that, he just turned around and asked, "What you were looking for? What do you want? What do you seek?" And it's a very small passage, but that's what Emmanuel does. He takes a versicle, a small versicle, and dissect what are we learning here? What did Jesus meant when he said this or he did this, right? And there's so much content that is impressive. So that's our topic for today. That's our little brick or Lego piece of the gospel for today. And we felt very appropriate because here we are in a new year, right? Everyone has, I bet, a long list of New Year's resolutions. Starting to exercise, or reading a book, or taking a certification, or eating less sugar, or complaining less, or calling your mother-in-law, or cooking, for having playing cards with your father-in-law. Everyone has a long, and the list goes and goes and goes and goes. At the end of the year, we didn't get much of that, right? So we should follow like Emmanuel. Pick one little piece, maybe, and start with that piece instead of 10, right? But it's interesting enough that we tend to think about our New Year's resolution, but we ended up forgetting about our new lifetime's resolution, because we have several lifetimes. We have one life because we are eternal spirits, all of us. Even if we are skeptics that don't believe in God, atheists, sorry, we are all immortal spirits. One day we will all realize that. But we think about our New Year's resolution, but we rarely spend time thinking about our existence resolutions. What are we here for? Why there's so much people in suffering, and we are blessed that we could walk here today and we can see each other and we can listen to each other and we have a home to go back to and we have food at the table and we are not in the hospital and some of us have a job. If we don't have it, it's part of the challenges of life. But at this very moment we have so many blessings. Have we ever asked why? Why do we deserve that? That's our commitment up there. Before we incarnated, there's a reason for it. Certainly not to vacation on earth, right? So we should think about this. And actually our life, our eternal life is a group, is a collection of experiences and learnings and acquisition, as Emmanuel says. We are here to acquire something. And we usually have different interpretations of that. But we acquire things to achieve one common goal. Even if we don't believe in God or if we don't have any religions, we are still here to achieve one single common goal. Our spiritual enlightenment. The engineers here present and are probably thinking about the diagram of Ishikawa, cause and effect. We're not going to do that. But it's a kind of, that was the goal actually. That's our main objective, spiritual enlightenment. No matter what a religion or no religion, or race or color or gender, we are students of an enormous and blessed university called Earth. That's at the end. And the lesson that Marco Magalhães read at the very beginning couldn't be more appropriate. Because if we remember what he read, he was talking about several resources and acquisitions that we receive from God to achieve that goal. And things that we should not take for granted and should appreciate and take care of it and protect of it. Starting with our health, right? Let's start with that. Education, right? Does education contribute to our spiritual enlightenment? Of course. Right? Emmanuel tells us that to achieve our moral evolution, we need two wings. The intellect or the intelligence and the moral or the sentiment. And we need those two wings to fly to the high realms of spirituality. It's a great analogy, right? A bird with one wing or a plane with one wing will just spin around. So we need the two. But if I invest only on my intellectual education, thinking I'm better than others, that's the danger. So this is not the end, but is a contributor to that. And we need education, obviously, to work. Because we need to work to survive on this planet, right? We need to maintain ourselves. So it's important. Sometimes we question, I don't know why I have this profession. What the value do I add to the world for this profession? It's because sometimes we wanted to have a bigger value. We want to be big. That's part of us. That's our pride speaking. Personally, we had that questioning for years. We are starting to understand that we are not here to transform the world. We are here to improve ourselves, to return better than what we here arrived. So I don't need to be Bill Gates. I'm not going to be Steve Jobs. I'm not going to be, name it. Einstein. Nope. Maybe, but most likely not. So we are here to improve ourselves, and that's good enough. That's hard enough. And that's our commitment. So we, as we commonly say, we work to live, we don't live to work. Right? That people say? So hard to do, right? Because we tend to invert the values. There's peer pressure. My neighbor has a better car. My neighbor has a better job. He is the boss. I'm the person with hands dirty. So I feel smaller than him. That's our pride, right? So, our health, we need to protect our bodies. It's something that God, the nature, lended us to use. It was planned, right? If I have the body that I have, it's not by accident. And if you're skinny, you want to be fat. If we are fat, we want to be skinny. If we have a dark hair, I want to have blonde hair. If I have blonde hair, I want dark hair. If I know hair, I want hair. If I have hair, I want less hair. We're never happy. Right? But the reality is we plan it. We ask for it if we have that condition too. So we should be happy and we should take care of our bodies. But I don't want to be slaves of our bodies and make our bodies the reason for our life. Because one day we will leave this body as we left those jackets on the hangers. It's a machine. It's a blessed and a marvelous machine that we have to live and learn in this planet. And the list goes on and on. Our house, we're talking about material resources and cars. It's all relevant and important for us to live on this planet. But it cannot be the objective of our existence. And how many times we do that? We make our homes the reason for us to live. I don't travel because of my home. I don't visit because of my home. It becomes an obsession. It's so many things. The list is long and long and long. But for all these things, there is one thing that Emmanuel calls it, saying that is the most relevant and important things that we acquire, that we have as resources in our current existence. And they are the religious values. Whichever religion you're talking about. Doesn't need to be Spiritism. As long as this religion has its meaning to connect us with God, religare as the reason for it, as the root for it, right? Connect ourselves to the Creator. That's the objective of the religions. That's the most important thing here. Well, we need both. We need moral and education, yes. But look at the world with so much education and so little moral. We don't need to say anything anymore. We know the consequences, right? So this is one of the most important things, and is actually one of the things that we most neglect, because it doesn't give us status. It's not fancy. It's not fancy in the social media. People at the high levels of society doesn't care about it very much. Historically, that's the way it is. If you read that book 2,000 years ago from Emmanuel, that's exactly what happened with him, and it's still happening today with all of us. So I just wanted to illustrate, and this is all from Emmanuel, reflecting on this little question from Jesus, actually. Now, I want to reinforce this by reading. I ask you forgiveness, but I want to read this. This is from a book from Chico Xavier and Emmanuel called Paul and Stephen. It's the story of Paul of Tarsus. And it's a beautiful and amazing book. And I want to read a little passage here just to illustrate, because it feels that we are neglecting family and other things that are important for us on earth. I'm not saying that we should become someone who lives in a dome. We need to live in the world as is. We need all those resources, but we have a goal, a common mission here. We don't want to forget about it. And there's a reason for Emmanuel saying that the religious values are the most important. That's what I want to read here. This passage is a time where Barnabas and Peter were discussing with Paul, because they were concerned with the church of Jerusalem. There's so many sick people and ill people and poor, hungry coming to the church. They were overwhelmed with the work. Very little financial resources. And Paul wanted to leave Jerusalem and go to the Gentiles to spread the gospel, because he knew that if he kept the gospel among the Jewish, over time, the world would forget about it. So he wanted to go, and everyone said, we need to take care of the poor, the sick first. They need us first. And this is what Paul touches on that very point. He says, currently we are able to take care of the sick, offer bed of repose to unfortunates. But there always were and always will be sick and tired bodies on earth. That's the nature of our planet of trial and expiations. There will be always suffering until we transform ourselves individually. That we don't need to face all the challenges that we are facing now. In the Christian endeavor, such efforts to help those in need cannot be forgotten. They are valuable, they are important, they are part of our journey to help others. But the illumination of the Spirit must take precedence. That spiritual enlightenment is in first place. Because we are going out trying to save the world, but not understanding why we are doing this, or we are doing this for pride, or not transforming ourselves, we are failing in our missions. How can we save the world if we cannot save ourselves? How can we make the world a better world if we cannot make ourselves a better person? Does that make sense? That's what he's saying here. If people had Christ in their hearts, pay attention to this, the antidote of all the suffering on earth. If people had Christ in their hearts, the picture of their needs would be completely different. How? The comprehension of the gospel and the examples of the masters would revamp perspectives on pain and suffering. If we had Jesus in our hearts, we would see pain and suffering differently. That's why it's so important. I don't understand. Okay, he continues. The needy, the people in need, suffering, would find resource through their own efforts. They would have the courage, the strength, the resignation to go after help. They wouldn't have pride holding them back to ask for help. If we need help, we would go and ask. If we had the teachings of Jesus in our hearts. The sick would feel in a long illness an outlet for their imperfections. And we heard that from Chico Xavier so many times about his eye. That he thought that his eye was a way to remove the imperfections of his spirits. The pain, the suffering was making him better. So don't cure my eyes, he said to Dr. Bezerra, because my sickness is actually my cure. Who from us would say that? No one, obviously. Not me. But that's the reality. Nobody would be a beggar on the streets because they would all have the Christian light for mutual help. Why do we have beggars today? Why there's hunger today? Because we don't leave the teachings of Jesus in our hearts. We are selfish. We only think about ourselves or our families or our friends. But a beggar, we judge. He may be a drunk, a drug addict, or it's the government's problem, right? And finally, life's obstacles would be cherished. That tough boss that we have, the tough parents, the body that we are not very happy, right? Being unemployed, or not having, a turkey for dinner, or not having so much to eat. We wouldn't curse those things. We would cherish. Cherish as the sacred corrections of a loving father for his troubled children. And the troubled children here is actually us. So God doesn't want to eliminate us as the God from the Old Testament. God is a loving father and wants to give us the lessons so we learn and improve. So that's why these religious values, the moral values, are the most important things. I just wanted to illustrate that in the words of Paul of Tarsus, in the works of Emmanuel also. Are you all with me? Okay, halfway through. I'll try to finish earlier for the lunch. So this book is marvelous, and this lesson, it was very important personally, because of that desire to do big things, to change the world of our hearts. That was must do, and that's the reason. So if we all change the world in our hearts, things around will start changing, one person at a time. There's no magic. Now, when we talk about religious values, the first thing came to mind, especially people who don't follow any religion, is what we actually did with religions. So many atrocities that happen in humanity because of the religions, and that's why so many people become skeptics, atheists. They don't want to hear about religion. They don't want to hear about Jesus. They don't want to hear about Spiritism, prophets, Bible. They don't want to hear, right? Unfortunately, that's a reality very strong in Canada, in parts of Canada, that people don't want to hear about Jesus. And they even talk about each other in a negative way, using the name of Jesus, the name of God, because of the abuse that we actually impose it in others in the name of Christ, God, the name of religions. But the fact is, we brought this because Emmanuel actually bring this because we actually perverted the understanding of religion in a very self-centered way, in a very selfish way. We go to the churches, that's called church, which is a group of people, right? It could be a Catholic church, a Protestant, a Buddhist, a Hinduist, a Spiritist, it doesn't matter. But when we usually go to the church, talking in general here, right? We go asking for something. And we ask for petty things, for small things. We even go thinking about trades. Especially in this time of the year. God, I will stop watching that soap opera for 30 days if you help me to get a raise in my work. So I love that soap opera, but I will resist for 30 days. So we are trading. We're making a deal with God. you know what? I will stop eating meat for 40 days if you help my wife to be a better wife. I hope she's not asking that about the husband. It's not gonna work. But that's the kind of trade. It's like bribing, right? There's no bribe. And if we go a little bit behind in history, we used to pay for salvation. The what is it called? The indulgence. We could do anything wrong that we could possibly do wrong, and some more, and they would go to the priests or to the Spiritist over there and say, here is some money, give me a certificate, so when I pass away, I get my place on heaven. We thought we could buy things. We thought we could make such deals with God. This is so selfish, so inferior. You know, how much we abuse of that. And I'm talking about a few centuries back, but it's actually still happening nowadays. People go to some Spiritist centers, hey, here's the basket. You know, you gotta help so you can be helped. You go to the church, you have that peer pressure. And it happens in the family. You're giving only $5? Oh, come on.
No.
It's not enough. What did you ask for? Is $5 not going to be enough? Come on. It's happening today. That's our understanding of religiousness. And what we should look at those cases, not to criticize. We are here explaining, illustrating what a man will bring to us. But we should have pity and pray for those people so they can understand. And if we are in that situation, ask for help so we can truly understand what religion means, which is nothing exterior, but is a very personal and deep connection between us and God. That's the religions. Unfortunately, we went to that route. We have forgotten what Jesus taught and exemplified for us. Because more than teaching and speaking, he exemplified. He did every single thing that he taught. And he taught many things that he didn't talk about. He lived. That's the best way of teaching, right? Is doing it, showing it. And we forgot the lessons of the cross. That we should not rebel against the suffering that we were just talking about. We should appreciate the suffering with the opportunities for us to learn and to grow, to develop ourselves. Nothing exempts us from our suffering from what we planted, right? If we have to pass through some trials to become better, we'll go through it. So maybe if we ask not to go through that, may not work. So we should rethink what we ask. Maybe give me the strength, give us the patience, help us to go through that suffering. And Divaldo Franco says, we are free to sow. We are free to plant. Good, evil, whatever we want to plant. We are free. We can plant. We choose what we plant. But we are slaves of the harvest. If we planted good things, we will harvest good things. But if we planted inferior negative things, we are not going to harvest good things. We will have to harvest the consequences of our acts, our thoughts, our words. And that's great part of so much suffering that we have today. So that's the symbol of the cross, that Jesus gave us the whole exemplifications of the fact that happiness is not from this world, but happiness is our destiny. God didn't create us to suffer. God created us to be happy. We decided to take detours, and that's why we suffer. And the day we reconnect and aim ourselves to the north, to the teachings of Jesus, suffering will go away. How soon depends on how much we want and how much effort we put to go into the right direction. Because after the cross, it didn't end here. Jesus came back and told us, I'm still alive. All the suffering is behind. He forgave everyone. He moves on. And that's exactly what we should do. In the new year, that's the message that we should rethink. Easter is coming. That's the message of Easter. It will come in a couple months for us. So, we must learn to love our crosses. It is so difficult to do, but that's his message. Carry it, because happiness is our destiny. Every suffering is temporary. And it's still with us because we still have something to learn from it. The day we learn, we don't need that anymore. Now, without that understanding, we remain prisoners of our inferior sentiments, of our selfishness and pride, our rebelliousness. We will be continuously prisoners of that. And the cross is a symbol of freedom, when Jesus left all that suffering, the negativity behind, and moved on. And that's the way we should handle it. Okay? Hence the question, what are you looking for? What are the things that we are looking for? Positive things, negative things. Freedom in the world is to do what we want. Freedom with Jesus is to do what we are supposed to do, what we must do. That spirit evolution, that obedience to the law. And Jesus was obedient to the law of God until the end. He accomplished his mission until the end, no matter what. The law of love. He forgave everyone. He helped everyone. He was humble. So that's the message for us. That's the teaching for us. And Jesus put this in a different way for us. And he says, for everyone who receives, for everyone who asks, receives. The one who seeks, finds. And to the one who knocks, the door will be open. Forgive it, cut it over there a little bit. But he complements that. What do we seek, he asks, right? And then he says, whatever you were seeking, you will find. What are we seeking? What are we looking for? What do we want for our existence? And some of you know that I am a high technology person, so I love Google Glasses, right? So I bought something here to illustrate the idea. But I don't have Google Glasses because it's expensive, so I have the frugal glasses. So to illustrate, what are we looking for? Because if we have that tendency to just look for the negative things, that's what we're going to see in the world. Then we have this kind of glasses. The world is wrong and I am right. Right? Everything that is around is wrong, and we think it's the people. But it's in me, because that's what I am looking for. If I go to a church, I give 2 steps back, and I think, you know what, it's just a matter of time for these people drop their masks. They say they are lambs and Christians. I bet someone will lose the patience with someone here. I bet someone will have some financial problems, will steal some money here. I bet someone will be rude with each other. And we keep going from church to church, and we keep finding it, because that's what we're looking for. Because no one is perfect. There's a story from Humberto de Campos, and the title is the Spiritist, this perfect Spiritist group, or something like this. It's a woman that goes from the Spiritist center to the Spiritist center, saying she wants to work, she wants to help. And then people say, yes, you can help. We need people to come here and clean. And she comes and clean. And then she talks to the Spiritist president. You know what? I have so much mediumship abilities, and it's a waste of time for me to cleaning. Is there any work I can do? No. So she went to another Spiritist center. She went there, and she saw 2 people arguing, and then she looked at, well, what kind of a groupament is this? You know, I'm looking for a place where people love each other, respect each other. You know, I'm not looking for a place where people are fighting each other, having disagreements with each other. This is not Christian. And then she goes to another one. She goes to 10 different Spiritist centers. One day, she begs to her guardian angel, said, I need your help. I need you to find me a place where people love each other, they forgive each other, they don't have hard feelings, they support each other, they do things to each other even before each other asks. And her gardener say, yes, I have a place for you. Really? Where is it? It's the aggroupment of our Lord Jesus Christ. But unfortunately, you cannot be part of it yet. Right? A perfect place. There is not a perfect place. We are not perfect. And we have to make a choice. If we have these lenses, the world is wrong, and every single place we go, we will only see the negative sides. Who is married here? Okay. So at the very beginning, I have these lenses. I used to look at my house, my wife, my kids, my parents, my father-in-laws, my neighbors. And I was right, because that's what I wanted to see. And Emmanuel calls that André Luiz actually calls that as the mirror effect, because it's on us, and we see on others and it comes back to us. It's on us. It's the mirror effect. Is that what we're seeing? Because this is what's in our hearts. And we need to make a choice. We need to change our lenses to these lenses. And when we look at each other, we should remind ourselves that all of us, we have a positive side. We have our virtues. Everyone. But we also have our imperfections that we want to get rid of them. But they are not so easy to get rid of. Is it? It's very hard. It's very hard. This tendency here is what André Luiz also called the central theme. Every single one of us has a central theme in our minds. It's a topic that is the utmost concern, and we keep repeating this theme. There are people repeating the same thing for 10 incarnations or more. For some is selfishness. For others is pride. For others is the extreme abuse of sexuality. And we have this central theme, and everything we do gravitates around this. And that's what creates these lenses. The lenses of negativity, because I have it on me. And I cannot change the world. I can only change me. You can only change ourselves. That's why that in spiritual enlightenment, that's already a big mission. A pretty big mission to change that. And the inferior spirits that don't want us to improve, our obsessors or the obsessors of the religious groups, they don't want us to change that. And they explore that central theme. They observe us, exactly what we are thinking, and they hit exactly on that point. If we have lack of confidence, you bet. They will put thoughts in our minds saying, you know what? Raquel is looking at you in a way that I don't think she likes you. I don't think she agrees with you. And then I start to feel bad. And I doubt myself to the point that I withdraw from anything I want to do. Because when I look at Raquel, I'm just using it as an example, right? Look at Marco. I will doubt myself. Because the spirits may be using my central theme to explore and to undermine my desires to do something this year for my spiritual enlightenment. Going back to our reincarnation plan or to our New Year's resolution, we got to be careful, right? What are we looking for? Are we looking for negative things? We will find it. Are we looking for positive things? We will find it. We are always right. Because it's how we program our minds. How we program our minds. I'm almost done. And then Emmanuel presents the same to the Spiritist workers. And he asks, I'm using the image here for year-end gathering here. But picture ourselves in this picture as we wanted to serve in a church, as we want to help the world. We should ask ourselves, what are you looking for? What are we looking for? Why are we doing that? Are we doing that like the apostles who were fighting each other to understand who is the bigger? Who is the most important? Who is the strongest medium? Have we ever heard in the Spirit Center like this? Oh, that person is such a strong medium. As if he was from another planet. That strong medium has defects and problems and issues as everyone else. Or who is the best speaker? And Jesus gave us the answer. The smallest, the one who is cleaning the washroom over there, picking up the stuff on the street, that's in the path to be the biggest in the spiritual realm. Being here, speaking, it's easy. So why do we come here? To feed our pride? To look better than what we are really? Or to show off that we are better than others? We are not better than anyone. We are all together. There's no teachers. Jesus even told to the disciples, do not call anyone teacher, because I am your teacher. I am your only master. Because everyone else is on the same stage, in the same university of the souls. So we should all remember that. And there's a message from Emmanuel in the book, The Spirit of Truth, that talks about it. And he calls the attention of the mediums. He calls the attention of the speakers. He calls the attention of those who are dedicated to the kids, the teaching the kids. He calls the attention of the Spiritist workers and volunteers from all sectors. And obviously from people from our religion who we're serving. What are we looking for? Why we are doing what we do? We should ask ourselves. It's a good reflection to start the year, actually. We should analyze that. And what if Jesus asks us that question? What would we ask? What would we answer? Right? We shouldn't look for perfection in any place, because we'll be disappointed. We shouldn't look for perfection in our relatives, in our parents, friends, co-worker, bosses, because everyone has a negative side, because we are all evolving. So the best remedy is lower the expectations. Let's be benevolent with each other, even within the Spiritist centers. Because one of the most important things in the Spiritist centers is we are learning from each other. We are learning to love. That's why we live in families. We are learning to love. And love is not sexuality. Love is forgiveness, is acceptance, is benevolence, is charity, is to silence sometimes, or to say, or to be present. It's very different. Love is Jesus. It's very different than the love that we know. And Emmanuel concludes saying that Jesus, that's in his words, he says that Jesus is at the door of every human temple in the world, asking every single one of those who enters, what are you looking for? What do you seek? Are you here to find the defects of each other and point fingers and think how good we are? That's not the right answer. Are we here to improve, to become better, to serve, to look for help, or to thank? Because we usually go to the temples to ask for help because things are difficult. We rarely came to the temples if things are all sunny. So what are we looking for? So I think we all should have that in our hearts. Whenever you go to a church, whatever it is, remember that Jesus is at the door asking us, what are you looking for? What do you seek coming here? Right? And I ask for, I excuse myself to use this picture. My daughter just came out of the blue yesterday, Amanda, 6 years old, with a picture that is for you. And I had a little bit of hard time to read it, but she says, love is in your heart. It's right in between the heart. And then on the side it says, love is in you, and it spreads everywhere. For a 6-year-old coming with this out of the blue, I said, wow. And decided I want to use this because this is the core of our lesson, right? This is exactly what we're talking about, seeing outside what's in our heart. And it's very aligned with what we learned from Emmanuel itself. And he says that in Allan Kardec, in the Spirit's book says the law of God It's written in our conscience. So everything that Jesus taught, we know about it. We know what love is. And we need the religions actually to help us to unlock, to bring that back and irradiate, first with our hearts, and then irradiate to others. That's why I didn't plan for this, but it came very precisely for it. That's really the message for us, right? Unlock what we know. In Haroldo Dutra Dias, he says that the gospel is a group of post-it notes that you stick on the fridge to remind you, buy something, as if the gospel is a reminder. Why? Because we know it's on us. If we do something wrong, we know. Because we all have a seed, the spark of God on us. We just need to unlock. We need to have courage to put that in the right place. Not hide. We put our jobs, in our houses, in our physical appearance, in our diplomas in the first place. That is a supporting for our moral evolution, for the moral teachings of Christ. So our invitation for all of us this year is that we ask ourselves, what are we looking for in this new year? Or whenever we go to a temple, what are we looking for? But even outside of the temple, what's our main goal this year? We have so many, but do we have one that is actually to improve ourselves? Because that is priority. We all heard from Paul and from Amanda. So thanks for your attention. Food is almost ready.
Thank you.
All right, we do have a minute or two for questions. Anyone? Any comment? Anyone from the internet if have a question for us? All right, so thank you very much, Mark. It was a great luck. So let me call the kids and then we'll do the final prayer. Let's go to the prayer. Come on back. Right. So let us all close our eyes. Let's thank God for this new year that is starting. Let's thank God for our lives, for our family, for our friends. Let's thank God for this planet, for everything that we have to go through what we need to become better spirits. Let's pray for all those people that couldn't be here today, that they can feel the same love, the same peace that we're feeling right now. Let's ask our individual mentors, our guardian angels, to keep enlightening us, keep in our minds and our hearts all the lessons that Jesus brought to us, that we can every day in our lives, in our acts, in our thoughts, in our words, we do those things that Jesus would do, that we give our best every day to everyone. So be it. All right.